I wrote this piece in a 3-hour sitting that began before dawn on the last day of the worst year. 2020, a lost and damnable stretch of time. After writing it, I limped on toward the finish line, as wounded and heartbroken as anybody else. But I knew that I couldn't enter the new year without resolve. We talk about resolutions at this time of year, but those are often soon forgotten because a resolution is nothing without its root word, resolve. That's what we need, all of us. If you look at it just as a word, it's resolve. And isn't that what life really is, friends? A constant, never-ending attempt to solve the problems that confront us, and then, when the dawn comes once more, to resolve them? Even a word as seemingly strong and definite as resolve has the admission of imperfection built right into it. We have resolved this issue. The gavel sounds, the headlines shout the news, and we pretend that we've beaten the problem, but we never have. We've only ever beaten back the problem. The problem is permanent because we are the problem. Everybody wants so badly to be righteous these days. Everybody wants to claim the high ground. Not surprising in such confusing times. Perhaps moral confusion always begets moral preening. We are an overcompensatory species. Look at us as a people. How ridiculous are we? We've spent the last few decades screaming at one another across a divide that we created by screaming at one another, and then demanding that those other people over there across the chasm get their shit together and close the gap. Really, this has been going on since the Nixon era. It got a lot worse as colleges went left. It got worse again when talk radio went right. And since Facebook invented the comment link that called somebody back to see how you destroyed his argument, we've been in full tilt warfare from the halls of Congress to everybody's pocket phone. Oh, Lord, how we need to turn down the big hostility knob. Both sides know that we can't continue to be the great nation we inherited if we cannot agree to some basic rules and moral tenets. We can't keep living for the next jolt of adrenaline. But neither side wants to give an inch. Each puts the onus on the other. I'm perfectly willing to reunite with those people if they would just give up their ridiculous ideas and adopt my way of doing things. See, I'm reasonable. I've touched on the idea of a national renewal several times in recent videos. I believe to the core of me that such a movement must happen if we're to prevent the country from going under. China is ready, willing, and able to take the lead. They're chomping at the bit. They're laying the infrastructure all over the planet. Belt and Road, China's plan for us all. Maybe their plan would work in some countries, but not in the lands of the free. Those countries need America, but not in its current shell-shocked condition. Thomas Jefferson famously wrote that the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Here's a Google search I did the other day. It's not hard to picture a lot of fingers getting itchy on the trigger. But Jefferson was not talking about the Revolutionary War or predicting the American Civil War. He was referring to Shays' Rebellion, which took place shortly before the Constitution was finally ratified. The rebellion actually gave support to Alexander Hamilton's arguments for a stronger central government. As far as I know, no blood of tyrants was shed. I can't count the number of comments we've had on BCL videos calling for civil war, some sort of patriots' revolution. It's at these moments when I wish I could reach through the internet and deliver a good slap across the chops. What the hell are you thinking? A shooting war? How would we do that? Would the people in liberal strongholds round up conservatives into re-education camps? Would conservatives pick off Tesla drivers at the charging station? That's what civil war is. It's killing your fellow citizens. I'm sorry, but it's not my job to entertain violent fantasies when the country I love is tearing itself apart. There is no modern-day Mason-Dixon line. The combatants in the current conflict are all mixed in together. I'm not going to give 1 minute's encouragement to this civil war nonsense. I'm putting my energy, going forward, into civil discourse, civil behavior. I'm ready and willing to sit down with my adversaries and hash out the basic differences with an eye to compromises that both can live with. I'm willing to talk about how my civil liberties and your civil rights can be woven back together into a more durable fabric of civilization. Am I talking about changing minds? Yes, but not in the way you think. If you're a conservative, don't expect to come away from a sit down with a progressive having changed their politics. You won't. Their lens on the world is different from yours. But what you will have changed is their perception of you. They will no longer be able to write you off as evil. And that, my friends, is more than half the battle. Our founders were not of one mind. If you read up a little bit on how they crafted this miraculous country and its remarkable founding documents, you'll read a story full of bickering and refusals to budge, of this man swearing never to speak to that man again, and then relenting. It was 11 years after 1776 before they had a constitution all could agree to. These men, and the women who advised them behind the scenes, haggled endlessly. They fought against each other, but they also fought together with each other, because their cause was greater than their differences or their egos. And men and women of good faith have haggled ever since for the survival of the nation our founders crafted. Why? Because even while we are created equal, we are not created identical. What seems the only just course to one person looks to another like a minefield of moral confusion. What seems a timeless truth to one seems to another to be nothing more than dogma from a bygone era. The blood of patriots flushed the faces of our founders and made their hearts pound. But they set aside their differences because they had a country to build. The tree of liberty is not some metaphorical oak on the edge of a battlefield. We are the tree of liberty. And we need to keep our blood right where it is, in our veins, in the veins of our children and grandchildren, in all of our hearts. We need to accept that ours is a conflict of ideas, ideas that have arisen as our era has become more complicated. What if these ideas were embraced or rejected on their merits, not on our prejudices toward whomever presented them? Could it be possible to even enjoy this process? I think about pro sports, football in particular. A war for territory played out on a grid. It's an exact metaphor for our struggles with one another to reach the future. Offense and defense, change versus entrenchment, the basic human debate. We only ever invented the ceremonial battles we've watched played out on the grass and hardwood so that our need for tribal affiliation and conflict could find channels of release without ruining civic life. Now we are throwing sports away because some biracial football player tried to work out his own inner conflict with a public protest. We were not large enough of spirit to say, here's a young man struggling with something, leave him to it. And look at the chaos that came from us allowing media figures on the right to blow that up out of proportion. How could left-wing media figures resist grabbing it up themselves as a platform from which to signal how not racist they are? This is the nature of a divide such as ours. Each side must constantly wave their flag lest they be thought the enemy and die by friendly fire. How unwise we've become. We seem not to know the first thing about human nature on either side of the divide. Whoever it was who designed us dispersed the qualities that we would need across the great number of us. Not a one has the whole complement of admirable traits and tendencies. We are designed to combine, not to mistakenly believe that anybody who is not our duplicate is therefore our enemy. Men of good faith, women of good faith. That's what we need in our neighborhoods and in our government. We need to stop sending politicians to Washington like gladiators into the Colosseum, obsessing on who won the most points on a given day, while the whole game devolves into something that makes pro football look gentle by comparison. We need to send skilled communicators who can huddle with the communicators sent by the other side. In good faith, good governance is not a bare-knuckle cage match. Good governance is a never-ending negotiation. Good faith means faith in the goodness of others, or at least the benefit of the doubt. We are decades into building the tribal mythologies that each side uses to deny the goodness of the other. Do you really believe that the God you worship screwed up when he made people who disagree with you? Do you think he wants you to silence them? We don't engage in civil debate anymore. We scan the news for a video clip of something that one of them said so that we can interpret a random snatch of rhetoric as proof that they are all bad, even satanic. We broad brush everybody across the divide as equally wrong and equally disgusting. And we engage in scapegoating, all to protect us from our fellow Americans. Many is the time that I've spoken with other worried conservatives, and one or the other says, "This won't end well." Because that's what seems obvious, but I refuse to believe that. I'm of the mind that this can only end well. It won't end unless it ends in an American renewal. There is no shooting war coming, not within our borders. If we don't end the current hysteria with a renewed determination to haggle and cajole and argue and eventually compromise, America won't end. Only our place as the world's leader will end. We'll gradually become that has-been nation that didn't understand itself well enough to keep its place in the lead. Believe me, China fully expects that to happen. So make up your mind. Are you a citizen of the greatest country on earth? Or are you a pawn in an endless tribal conflict being incited by trolls and hustlers, a rough, ignorant foot soldier scrambling up this hill or the next with no aim greater than winning that immediate ground? Is that you? Or are you ready to start seeing the big picture? To start playing the long game? If so, you will need to grant a basic level of humanity to that family member or coworker with whom you disagree, to speak with them openly and calmly, and to build out from there. I believe in the values I hold. I've arrived at them through a long process of thinking and experimenting and making every mistake available to me. My values are not at risk if I talk to a liberal. I'm not surrendering by being civil. I'm representing. I'm ready to call a truce and work to bring others toward me across the divide. And in cases where somebody else's idea is better than mine, I'm ready to move toward them. If all of this means that I have to leave my armed entrenchment, then so be it. Let this be where I place my resolve. Let this be my resolution. This past Friday morning, a song borrowed my pen to write itself. If you'll follow me to my other channel, I'll sing it for you. And I promise, it's no kumbaya. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe to our channel and then click the little bell to get notifications.